The third day was the most difficult day. On Friday, we had seen them take the leader that we followed and put him on a cross. On Saturday, he was in the tomb. And for us, what was left? We had followed this man. We had done everything he told us to do. We had given up our lives for him. And suddenly he was no longer there. Everything we worked so hard for was gone. Everything that we had was lost. It was buried with him in that tomb. All of our hopes and aspirations, they were buried with him in that tomb. The morning of the first day of the week, I had spent the night just weeping. 2 days just weeping because I remember what I did the last time I saw him. See, I didn't go to the cross because of the pain of what I did when I denied him, when I turned my back on him, when I ran away. I couldn't go to the cross and see him like that. So I spent the next 2 days just weeping before God, not knowing what to do. Every noise that we heard from down at the street level, down at the door, would fill my heart with terror because what's to say the Romans weren't coming for us next? And early that morning we heard a rustling down in the street. Someone began pounding on the door. And suddenly my heart was filled with fear, not knowing what was about to happen. Slowly looked out the window and saw that it was Mary. Quickly opened the door, and Mary came in and said, "He's alive." I looked at her in disbelief. There's no way. I know they crucified him. They buried him. He was dead. And she said, "But he's alive. I've seen him. He's alive." And so I ran as fast as I could to the tomb. I looked in the tomb. The rock was rolled away, and inside the linens that he was wrapped in were just laying there. But his body was gone. And fearfully, I didn't know if he was alive or if the Romans had just taken his body, and maybe Mary saw this and thought that all of these thoughts were going through my mind. And all I could remember was what I had done the last time I saw him. I went back to the house and just wept. A few days later, back on the fishing boat, and suddenly I saw a man walking down the beach. And it was just like the first day that I laid eyes on him. And he called to me, and I realized that it was Jesus. That he was walking along the beach. And I jumped over the side of the boat and ran to him. And just like in the beginning when he had first called me, he was on the beach, and I looked into his eyes and I saw the love that he had for me. When I got to shore, I realized, I looked into his eyes and saw the same love, the same feeling. No matter what I had done, no matter all of these other things that I denied him and I turned my back on him and I'd run and I'd fallen asleep and I didn't go to the crucifixion, all of those things, he still loved me. And I could see the love radiating out of his eyes. That evening, as we sat around the campfire eating, Jesus began to talk to me, and he said, Simon, do you love me? In my mind, I was wondering why he would ask such a question. I looked at him and I said, Lord, you know I love you. He said, okay, then feed my sheep. A few minutes later, as we were continuing to eat, he looked at me and said, Simon, do you really love me? And I said, Lord, you know I love you. And he said, Simon, feed my sheep. A third time, he looked at me and he said, Simon, son of Jonah, do you really love me? By this time, I was getting frustrated because I'd already told him twice. He knew that I loved him. I looked at him and I said, Master, you know I love you. And he said, feed my sheep. And suddenly I realized, just 2 nights before his resurrection, I was also around a campfire. And I had denied him 3 times. And this day, he was now bringing me back. Showing me that all of the other things that I had done, the sins, the rebellion, the anger, the frustration, all of those things didn't matter to him now. He just wanted to bring me back to him. And it was at that moment, that very moment, that I realized greater love has any man than this, than one who would lay down his life for his friends.